everyone, welcome back and hello if it's your first time here. My name is Ru Yi. Just a brief background about myself. I'm a law student. I did my law undergraduate at the University of Manchester and I recently just completed the bar vocational studies. So I asked my friends on Instagram whether they have any questions to ask in relation to the bar vocational course, and I gathered a few which I'll be talking through here. So the first one is, where did you do the bar course? I did the bar vocational studies plus LLM plus specialism in corporate law and practice at City Law School. So that's the first question. The second question is, what is the most challenging thing that I find about bar school? For me, it is the endurance. It is mentally and physically draining. Every week you have 10 hours of class, and the preparation that goes into each class is crazy. You would spend easily around 6 hours is a bare minimum, but usually I spend 10 hours to 12 hours or even more just prepping for one module. But again, at the end of the day, it is and it will be rewarding after the tutorial. If you do the prep, you will be fine, and if you do the prep, it will be worth it. The third question is, which subject do I find the most challenging? Well, I find them all difficult and challenging in different ways. For advocacy classes, the most challenging part is the fact analysis. For criminal advocacy is more, the challenging part is the frustration that comes with not getting there yet. You might find yourself enjoying that module, you might enjoy the preparation, but then when it comes to the classes, you might feel like something is missing. The most important thing about advocacy classes is to observe what your peers are doing and take down all the feedbacks that the tutor is giving to your peers. It just speeds up your learning process. You don't have to make the mistake yourself, but learn from the mistakes of other people. That's what I would say. And the most challenging part for criminal litigation is to analyze the questions and just to think beyond what it looks on paper. So criminal litigation is just very tricky and sneaky. It doesn't mean that having studied for it, you will be able to score well, but it requires some form of critical thinking and intelligence. At least that's what I believe in. And so that's what I find challenging about criminal litigation. And that is also, I think, the module with the highest failing rate for my year. For civil litigation, the challenging part is the preparation. I think out of all of the modules, the most demanding one in terms of preparation is civil litigation. The essential reading that goes into it, girl. By the end of the day, once you get the hang of it, you'll be fine. It's just be sure that you do the prep for each class. It really helps, and it really makes things worth it when it comes to the revision season. You would thank yourself for preparing for the classes, even though throughout the months you will not have time to properly prep for every single one of your module. But this is where the advice comes in, to work smart, to balance out whatever you think is most important at that point and most important in the long run, bearing in mind that you will need those materials that you prepare for your classes during the revision season. So even if you miss it before class, you better prep it after class or you would suffer during revision. The fourth question, do you need to read the whole book for revision? I'm not sure what book this question is referring to, but for each week you will have suggested readings and also essential readings for most of the modules. And I would say the essential readings for criminal litigation and civil litigation, yes, you have to read all of them. And as literal as it is, essential reading means they are essential, and you really have to read them if you want to score if you want to score well, because that's how the questions trick us out. They ask you questions that are beyond the general rule, that are beyond the exceptions. They ask into things like commentaries or judgments from a particular case in the commentary of the white book that you wouldn't necessarily know if you haven't read the white book in detail, or if you haven't read the Blackstone criminal practice in detail. So yes, essential reading means essential reading, and you really have to read them. You might not need your essential reading, all of them, for your classes. You could scrape through it without reading it for your classes. Just read the materials that is provided by your school, but bearing in mind that you would need them when it comes to the assessment. So might as well do it before your classes. It would help. You could answer some really mind-blowing questions that your tutor may not be expecting anyone to know. So try to read as much as you can before the classes. If not, it's alright. I mean, don't blame yourself too much and don't be too harsh to yourself, because I doubt any one of us did all of the essential readings before our classes. But I did do my essential readings before the assessment, because I underestimated it. I underestimated the essential readings and I did not do it. But when I visited the mock questions and when I looked at the mock questions that was provided by BSB, I knew I wasn't ready, and so I deferred my civil paper because I know I wasn't ready. I did not read the commentary paragraphs in detail. I got tricked out by all the questions that was in the mock paper. That's why I deferred. Don't make the same mistake. Okay, and tips on how to study. The biggest tip I have for criminal litigation is to read the Blackstone's criminal practice, and also to do a lot of past year questions and mock questions, because that's how you learn the ways that the BSB would trick us out. You would only have one copy of the mock papers, but try to talk to your friends from different who are doing the bar course at different providers. Try to exchange some materials. It's a win-win situation for both. So just an overview. This is how the Blackstone's criminal practice looks like. This is what you will be using for criminal litigation. This book is all you need for criminal litigation. I read online, but it's not suggestible. I would highly suggest reading from the book instead of online. Yes. And that's my tip for criminal. For drafting, it is absolutely essential to have a compilation of the precedents for your draft, because drafting would be, I'm not sure how other providers do it, but for Citi, the drafting is a 3-hour open book paper where you will get the question. You will have 3 hours to analyze the facts, analyze the cause of action, analyze the elements, analyze everything, and then draft it out within 3 hours, which I think is crazy. So with that, you should prepare beforehand the samples that that your school gives, so that when it comes to the assessment, and for example it's a contract, a breach of contract case, then you could look at your precedent, the ones that is more closely related to your facts, and then copy the structure, because for drafting, the structure of your draft is very, very important, and the use of terminologies is also very important. So if you have the precedents at hand, it would really, really, really help you. I don't think anyone would be able to get away without the precedent, but you need it. You really, really do need it. So the way I did it was to have one book for how did I do it? To have one book for breach of contract cases and one book for tort cases, so that when the exam papers comes out and I know it's not a contract case, I can just throw it away and then focus on breach of contract, or focus on tort. Look, this is how I do it. Analyze the structure and then highlight the words that are used in the samples. Like here, usually in paragraph 2 is where they talk about the contract, and in paragraph 3 is where they talk about the terms. Paragraph 4 is for implied terms, and then paragraph 5 if defendant's knowledge. 6 is these are pretty standard structure. And also I highlight words like in the alternative to or further to. These are all the words, like in performance of the agreement. So if it's a contract case, then I would be using all these words, and I would be flipping to the precedent that is relevant to my case. So for drafting, having copies of the sample is very important. For drafting, you might think, where can you find all the precedents? I think your tutor would go through this in class, but generally you could go to Buttersworth, I can't even remember, Buttersworth civil something, search that up on Lexis. You can also go to Atkins Courts Form, you will have also precedents there, or use the samples provided by your school, or in the City Law School's drafting module, there are also precedents inside at like certain pages. You could print them out, and if you're a City Law School student, City would give you a copy of the hard copy version of the drafting book, and you will also have a PDF copy to all. You just have to find it on Moodle. Yep. So drafting, it is quite essential to read these as part of your essential reading as suggested by your weekly prep, and I highly suggest to read them. I think you really need to read them to do well. You have to read this. I did the same for opinion writing. I compiled all of the samples that City gave us, so that when a question comes out and I think, oh, this is pretty familiar, I've done this opinion in this particular area of law before, then I can go and look at their structure, the way they advise, the words that they use to give their advice. Because if you are just starting from scratch, you'd be all over the place. And all these samples, at least at City, they are drafted by experienced barristers, lawyers. So they would have really practical advice that we wouldn't necessarily think of as a student. So if you refer to them, it might, you might pick up a thing or two that will impress the examiners. So for opinion writing as well, prepare your book of precedent with all the sample opinions inside. And for professional ethics, you will also have a copy of the book from City. Actually, for professional ethics, if you don't read it, it's actually fine. But at the same time, you still have to read all the rules that is in your essential reading, like the code of conduct provided by the BSBs. Those essential readings you have to read, but the textbook is not essential to me. But the rules are essential. Okay, for civil litigation, you will have two books. They are known as the White Book. You will have volume 1 and volume 2. This is volume 1, and this is volume 2. As you can see, I use volume 1 a lot more than volume 2 because volume 1 is where all the rules fits in, and volume 2 is where all the supplementary and less important ones, I would say, are placed. For volume 1, okay, my biggest tip for civil litigation is to start marking up your book and start highlighting your book as soon as you are doing your preparation, as soon as you are doing your reading for each week, because you will have two papers for civil lit, paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1, they ask you more straightforward cases, more straightforward rules and exceptions. But for paper 2, they ask you more in-depth questions that would require more in-depth understanding of the commentary paragraphs and the practice directions. So you need to start marking up the white book in preparation for your paper 2, which will be an open book. So highlight the commentary paragraphs, highlight those words, like in the rule that says you need to satisfy A, N, B, or C. You have to highlight the words of N, or all those tiny things. And one tip for open book, this is how I do it, at least, because there are 3 sides to the book. So the top part, I tag all the time limits for all the rules. I don't usually use them, but just in case I panic in the exam and can't seem to find anything, at least I have the time limits up here that I could quickly look through and check my luck whether or not I managed to spot it. And the bottom is all the cases that I need to know, that are important cases listed down in the commentary paragraphs that are usually tested in paper 2 questions. And the sides are the marking ups of the chapters by topic. And at the very beginning of each chapter, I'll have the essential readings tagged out, so that during exam, if a question comes out and I know it is under chapter 6, but I don't know which rule under chapter 6 that they are referring to, then I'll look at the essential readings, because the questions can only come out from the essential readings. So if I list down all the essential readings here, then I would know where I could refer to. And at the same time, each chapter will have a table of contents in the first page. So I would highlight the rules. I would highlight them if they are part of the essential readings. So it makes me know, it gives me a clear vision of what is within the syllabus and what is not within the syllabus. These are all to help me when I panic, and it also helps whenever I'm doing questions and I need to refer to something. Then I will quickly come back to here and see what is part of the syllabus and which rule I should refer to. Yeah, so I would suggest civil procedure for civil litigation to start marking up your book as soon as possible and start to integrate yourself into the book so that you wouldn't struggle when the open book assessment comes by. I think that's enough. This video is extremely long, and the last question is how to survive. Just take it a step at a time. Do your weekly preparation. It's okay if you are, a little bit left behind, but just try to keep up every single week and don't give up. It requires a lot of determination. It requires a lot of teamwork. Help your peers. Ask for help from your peers. Practice your advocacy with your peers. If you're anxious, if you haven't done advocacy in a long time, my biggest advice is to practice with yourself or with one other friend. Honestly, the things that you'll be able to learn from each other is a lot, and you might all be coming from different tutors. Learn from each other what each other's tutors have taught. Learn from the tips and tricks that some other tutors might have given them. And also watch your recordings after your classes and note down the comments that are given by the tutors. Write down the words, the examples that are given, and also sometimes the tutor, in giving their feedback, they would also give you a performance of what they think you should have done. Write those down. How I did it was I write those down word by word and try to get it into my mind so that I would use it in the next practice or even use it in the assessment. Yeah. And also when it comes to the assessment, try to go and look for a class practice, a class tutorial that is the most similar to your assessment question, and then re-watch the recordings of yourself, or if you can, re-watch the recording of your friends and learn from there. Trust me, you will be fine. That's all for today's video. I hope at least someone would take away a point or two. I really hope that I knew these before I started bar school, so I'm trying to share as much as I can to everyone who will be starting the bar course really soon. I hope I'll be able to rush this video out before you guys start. Till then, good luck guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, rest well. Don't push yourself too hard, but don't give up. Be determined. And if you guys need any help, just let me know. I'll be here. Goodbye.